Okay, folks, this is our fifth episode now about mountaineering. And I believe the last one, I think I'm beating this one to death, and I love to jump into diving as my sort of next series, starting with not just diving, scuba diving, that is, not skydiving, but scuba diving, the blue hole in Egypt. More to come about, the blue hole, what it means in my scuba diving series. But just to wrap up the mountaineering series of episodes, we cover fitness quite extensively. I mean, not in super detail, but anybody can go and get more information about it on the web. There's plenty of it on the endurance training, etc. And then we talked about planning, what not to do, right? How to get started, how to select what I think are a best choice for guides. Not too good, not too inexperienced, but somebody that matches your level and you're trying to accomplish. And then planning. This is what I'm thinking is sort of the last big component for anybody who like to get started on mountaineering and climbing and mountaineering. And what do I mean by planning, right? So it means by a series of things that I could not find a lot of benchmarks on the web. So I kind of had to develop my own. I'm happy to share. One of them is sort of if you have a goal, right, which starts with a goal. So let's say my goal is to climb Everest in 2024, which is like 2 years from when I started. So I'll say, okay, so I have 2 years ahead of me, starting from zero. What I'm going to do, right? So I'm working backwards. So like a year before, I do want to have, under my belt, some sort of long expedition in the Himalayas. So I'm not going to try Everest probably next year, right? So let's say in 2 years from now. So that means in 1 year before, I want to climb one of the easiest mountains over there. I think nothing is easy over there above 20,000 feet, but Le Boucher is a good example, right? So look it up. I did quite a research to try to find sort of the optimal training peak in the Himalayas. It still requires, a 3-week expedition. There's acclimatization. You get to spend time on the base camp, the Everest base camp, a few days. So you get a lot of that experience, and then you climb, above 20,000 feet. So, air is going to be a problem, or lack thereof, oxygen, right? So on and so forth. But again, that's just 1 year, let's say 6 months from now. What am I doing now, right? So I'm going to go for smaller expeditions domestically, up in Mount Baker, Mount Rainier, back to Mount Washington, when I do plan on kicking my guide's ass this time. We'll see, right, after all this training. But I'm planning sort of, small steps, not taller, or not as tall mountains as I grow up to that goal, right? So that's really, and it's going to take a couple of years, honestly. And along the way, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy a 5-day expedition as much as a 1-day, climb. I don't know if, half the way I'm going to say, yeah, you know what, this is not for me, right? I don't want to be pooping in a garbage plastic bag for and carrying it for 5 days. Well, it's part of the game, right? Or maybe I do. I don't know. But that's what, I think this progressive approach towards a bigger goal like Everest is the way to go. Right? So I can always give up and say, nah, not for me, or so far so good. I'm kind of enjoying it. The moment I stop enjoying it, I'm just going to, go do something else. So that is sort of high level planning, the way I see it. And then you have the more tactical planning. So, and I mean by tactical is I have certain elevation goals for my next climb. So let's say, which is Mount Baker in like a week. Okay, so that's going to be a 3-day expedition. We're going to climb about 3,000 feet elevation in day 1, 4,000 feet elevation day 2. I know the mileage that I have to put on, not just elevation, right? But how much, the distance we're going to cover. I have an idea about the temperatures and sort of the terrain type. How I'm going to train for that. So what I've been doing is, and again, it's very hard for some reason to find good benchmarks. So I calculated. I have a spreadsheet. If anybody wants it, just ping me via social media, or I think my email address might be somewhere in the podcast's distribution list. But, social media is the easiest one. I'm happy to share. It's not very complex, but it's a good spreadsheet. And what I did in that spreadsheet is I started to not just track myself, but create some benchmarks based on on the expedition plans that I've been gathering. So for Mount Baker, I'll give you an example, right? Mount Baker day 1, right? That's going to be about a 2,800 feet elevation gain in day 1, and we're going to cover 3.7 miles. So that means the average elevation gradient, not the angle, right? The gradient, which means it's a percentage. So it's a percentage of a 45-degree angle, which is pretty much the max. So it's going to be 18% elevation gradient. So that's not super steep. And then I timed, how long the guides expect us to complete that. Okay. What do I do next? Right? It's about 3.5 to 5 hours. So what I did was I calculated what is the average speed, right? How many miles I have to cover, and the maximum, the minimum and the max speed, right? So it's between 0.8 and 1.1 miles per hour. Not very fast, but I'm going up. And what is the maximum and minimum feet that I need to gain per hour? And that ranges about 500 to 800 feet. So those are my benchmarks, right? Now day 2, we're gonna go up 4,600, 4,700 feet in one day. Much steeper terrain, right? We're talking about a 38% instead of a 18% sort of steepness, and completely in about 5 to 6 hours. That means I need to climb or go up about 800 to 900 feet per hour, and that's another benchmark. But my speed is going to be much slower, right? It's 0.5 to 0.6 miles per hour. So those are my benchmarks, right? This is easy to calculate. And now every time I have a long hike and I'm training, even in the gym, right? I'm always tracking two things basically, right? How many feet of elevation I'm gaining. So if I'm doing the Stairmaster, it's easy, right? Towards the end, you see it's a 50% gradient, that machine, but it's not really 50%, right? That machine is not perfect in terms of mimicking sort of climbing real stairs, right? But it's still, right? It's good exercise. And then in the incline, the 15 or 18% treadmill incline, right? It also gives you the elevation gain. So I always aim in my training at 2,000 feet per hour, meaning more than twice my targets for Mount Baker. Why? Honestly, because I don't want to embarrass myself and I want to be super prepared. Do I need to be twice as fast in terms of climbing? And then the speed also, right? My speed on average has been about 2.3 miles per hour. And again, the maximum speed required in day 1 on Baker is 1. So it's like more than twice. Why am I operating at more than twice the maximum benchmarks for this upcoming climb? One, because I want to kick ass, right? That's one reason. I don't want to be the last guy, everybody dragging me. 2, because these machines and my training is imperfect, right? So there are a lot of inefficiencies training in the gym or even training outdoors. And I'm trying to, by overtrain or training above that benchmark significantly, I'm trying to compensate for the inefficiencies, there are not, that I cannot replicate in sort of these controlled conditions, right? The temperature, the terrain, the difficulty in some rocky parts that's going to slow me down. So I'm always operating at twice these benchmarks. Is it too much? Is it too little? I don't know. It seems to be right? It seems to be right based on the other mountains that I climbed lately. Seem to be about the amount of over training that I need to do compared to these benchmarks, right? Seem to be right. So again, happy to share the spreadsheet that I created. There is some other benchmarks here. Everything that I do, I kind of try to track and create some averages, so I know where my body is at, and even sort of how tired I am. I mentioned like a couple of episodes ago some of the tools I use to track whether my body is getting too tired or not, like the heart rate variability for training, HRV4 number 4 training, kind of interesting app. And it kind of tells me, you can push today, take it easy, so on and so forth. Also, follow the plan of the fitness plan, the mountaineering plan that I bought online through those uphill athletes guys. That seem, I follow that, but there are no benchmarks, right? So I put my benchmarks together with that plan and sort of the overall state of my body, looking at those metrics, and this is how I roll. It seemed to be working. We'll see. Again, a week from now, I have a 3-day expedition with some climbing, school, rock climbing school in the middle. So it's going to be interesting. Got to fly all the way to Seattle and then drive up near Vancouver. And I hope those numbers are going to be the right ones, right? Everything that I've been doing and tracking are going to be right there, and I'm going to have fun and not going to be, suffering up and down that mountain. So that's about planning. Again, those benchmarks, you can create your own. I'm happy to share mine. I found them to be very hard to get from somebody else on the web. I don't know, for some reason people either don't track this or they don't share it. I don't know, or I couldn't find it. I don't know which one is true, but it's just difficult. So that's the planning. That's how I plan it. So I plan the workouts based on these numbers again, and then try to match these tactical activities, even the smaller climbs, with the bigger goal in 2 years. Try to take a shot at Everest, but go baby steps until I get there. And again, which is great. If I don't for some reason I stop enjoying this, I'm just gonna drop it and do something else. That's it for planning. I hope the whole series of episodes about mountaineering are gonna help anyone interested. I just try to share sort of my experience trying to get up to speed on it and have fun along the way, knowing nothing, literally nothing 9 months ago, and knowing a little bit now. And again, next one, we should start talking about scuba diving, a much more, I'll say, familiar topic for me, right? Because I've been doing this for many years, and I have a bunch of certifications. And I've done a bunch of dives in cool places. So it's going to be a slightly different conversation. But again, I started from scratch not many years ago, and I'd like to go back and see what I did, talk about the agencies, some of the crazy experiences that I have, especially the bad ones, but also some of the good ones, and hope get more people excited about scuba diving as well as mountaineering. So thank you very much, guys. Talk to you soon.